Was your family aware of what was happening to the Jews in Serbia and other parts of the Balkans? If so, could you describe what you knew? When did your family become aware of the Nazi camps, Nazi death camps? Our family, to be honest, was not very well aware of what was happening, except for my father, who was more knowledgeable on the issues of Nazi death camps and so forth. You know, I was young at that time, and I was not really interested in what was happening. But especially in Serbia, we had heard of a lot of cases of Jews being turned in. I don't know numbers. I can't just speculate on the numbers, but I can say in general about things that I've heard, but I haven't seen any documents. I've heard that a lot of intelligent people from Albania that were here were taken by the Serbs, who claimed that these were Jews, and were turned into the German Nazi camps. This is probably a roundup for all Albanian intellectuals that Serbs planned and turned them in to the Nazi camps. I don't know the numbers. I haven't seen any numbers documented. So this death camp does not exist anymore, and a lot of the people who were put in these death camps were never heard of. Remember, Pristina at that time was a small city, and every day the Jews that were put in the Pristina camp could also be given half an hour of visit in the Pristina town. Sami Mizraki, a Jewish from Shkup, was among the people in the camp here. So, but his name was, the name he had here was Sami Mazrek, which is an Albanian name. So, but his real name is Sami Mizraki, a Jew from Shkup, and he was a good friend of Solomon Conforti that lived in our house in Dechan. So, Sami Mizraki was one of the persons who escaped the Pristina camp. But the ones who escaped actually had Albanian names, the Albanian names of intellectuals. But among them were a lot of Jews. I'm not sure how many, but certainly quite a significant number. I haven't seen any data on that. What role did Belgrade play in the capturing and killing of Jews in Kosovo? How many of Kosovo's Jews were murdered by the Nazis? Well, individual Jews were few that were killed during the Nazi time. The Belgrade did not have a lot of influence on Kosovo at that time. Tirana had actually more influence for most of Kosovo, except for the Mitrovica region and the eastern Kosovo that were under the control of Belgrade. There were Jews in Mitrovica, and indeed most of them were killed by the Jews, and again Mitrovica was under the Serb control. But the Mitrovica region that was under the Serb control at that time was also not a safe zone for Albanians. So the Jews who were in Mitrovica at that time, a lot of them were killed, and a lot of the Albanians who tried to save them in Mitrovica were killed as well. A lot of these people were put in death camps. A couple of them were murdered in the downtown Mitrovica. So a couple of Jewish were murdered in the downtown of Mitrovica by the Nazis. So remember, Mitrovica was under the strict control of the Serbs and the Germans, and the rest of Kosovo was under the influence of the Italians and Albania. So yes, indeed, Mitrovica was a part of Kosovo where Jews were not safe at all, and there were a lot of Jews in Mitrovica killed. And as I said, a pharmacist and a traitor, Jews, both of them Jews, were shot dead in the downtown of Mitrovica by the Nazis. So Misha Vavic had once written about Reperjuci and had claimed that this person was a person who had saved a Jew, and then was an Albanian who had saved a Jew, and then was put in jail. And after he was released from the jail in Mitrovica, he was again put back in jail here in Pristina, in Kosovo. So finally, when my father had intervened with the local authorities through his nephew Halil Kastrati to release this person, because this was a person who did no harm, and finally the person was released. So I don't have more details for what happened in that other part of Kosovo. What do you know about the so-called Skanderbeg division of the SS? Who was involved in this? The Skanderbeg division was created in was established in Kosovo by the Albanians. Most of the members of the division were Albanians. Misha Vavic was one of the people who wrote about the Skanderbeg division torturing other people. But the facts are that the Skanderbeg division tortured no one. One of the commanders of the Skanderbeg division, who was from Kaçanek, had himself saved a Jewish family from Macedonia. And again, let me restate, he was a commander of the Skanderbeg SS division. And this commander not only saved this Jew family, but he also enabled their safe passage into Albania. He had declared this among many Jewish friends from America, and this fact was also made known by the former rector of the University of Tirana, Mr. Skender. But I can't now find the name of the Albanian commander from Kaçanek of the Skanderbeg this division. But Zenel Kelmendi, now I thought of the name, the former rector of the University of Pristina, actually had stated that this Albanian commander from Kaçanek, who was commander of the Skanderbeg SS division, had saved Jews. And this is a fact. What do you think was the mission of the Skanderbeg SS division? Was this a German battalion? What was the mission of the Skanderbeg division? Well, it is not very well known what the primary mission of the Skanderbeg SS division was, but the thing is, it was certainly not an anti-Jewish mission. The division was prepared to better prepared to secure the people of the towns here. And that division was actually formed in Albania initially, and then in Kosovo. And then most of the people that joined here followed what the Albanians in Albania did. And so their mission was not to persecute the Jews. So again, what I told you about Mitrovica, a lot of Serbs talked about the killings of Jews there that were committed under the influence of the Skanderbeg division, under the commanded Jaferdeva. Well, indeed, Jaferdeva was a minister of defense for Kosovo at that time, and he was from Mitrovica, but he himself was among the Albanians who saved Jews. And when he left Kosovo, he was given shelter in the U.S. and was given a retirement in the U.S. So because of what he did to save the Albanians, to save the Jews in the Albanian areas of Kosovo. He had helped a lot of Jews to cross into the rest of Kosovo from Mitrovica and then go into Albania. Remember that, as I said, Mitrovica was still under the influence of Belgrade at that time, north of the Ibri River. So, and unfortunately even today, they are still under the Serb minority influence there. So the Skanderbeg SS division had no particular anti-Jewish mission. They were good soldiers. They had the mission of protecting the Albanians against the Serbs, maybe, but certainly not the mission of killing Jews. But as I said, the former rector of the University of Pristina gave the accurate information of how several of the Skanderbeg SS division had helped Jews survive during the war, and there is fact for at least one commander that saved this Jewish family that came from Shkup to Kaçanik, and there could be other cases of this as well. Did your family keep in touch with the Jews that they had saved after the war? Our family tried to keep in touch with the Jews we had in our house, but it's interesting that except for Solomon Conforti that came back to visit us and who was living in Athens and came back to visit us and came to Shkup and then called us and called us from Sami Mizraki, and my father, my mother, and I went to meet him there. And for the rest of the Jews, we didn't really have any long-standing exchange of letters or information after the war. And what were your other contacts with the doctor? Yes, no, the doctor is a special case. I talked about it, and as you know, and as I said before, I don't want to repeat it again, but we did indeed keep in touch for a long time with Dr. Abravanel, as I previously said. What could you tell us of this picture here? Where is this picture taken and who was in it? This is a picture of the Dr. Abravanel family. This is his wife, the wife of Dr. Abravanel. It's the daughter of Dr. Abravanel. This is my mother. This is a servant in Dr. Abravanel's house. This is the son-in-law of Dr. Abravanel. And this is Shirley, the niece of Dr. Abravanel. And my father with Dr. Abravanel at the top. About this one. This is the wife of Dr. Abravanel and the son of Dr. Abravanel. This is Dr. Abravanel with my father and my mother. So my father and mother were with Dr. Abravanel, were his guests in Manastir. They went to visit him for a few days, and so the doctor took him on a tour of the Ohor Lake. And so at the Ohor Lake, they decided to take a boat and visit the lake around. So that's my father, Arslan, and my mother, Fatime, and this is Dr. Abravanel. This is in the yard of our front yard of our house. This is Estera, the wife of Rafael. This is Iveta, the daughter of Estera. This is Dodona, the wife of Solomon. This is the daughter of Solomon. This is Maurice Conforti. And this is the wife of Maurice. How about this one? This is Dodona. Dodona Conforti Cohen, the daughter of David Cohen and the wife of Solomon Conforti. What's this document all about? This is a letter that Dr. Abravanel had sent to us from Jerusalem, Batyan. He did not go there initially, but his family went there first, and then he later went to join them. So he writes on the 28th of December of 1976 to let us know he was now in Jerusalem. So the letter comes in the name of Shirley, Berta, and Dr. Abravanel from their address in Jerusalem. And so I have come in touch with Shirley at this address. And so when I was in Israel now in 2007, I met Shirley. She's now a professor, holds a PhD and a medical degree. Can you tell us what happened to Dr. Abravanel after the war? Can you tell us about his life after the war? After the war, he was living in Manastir, and then from Manastir he moved to Jerusalem, and in Israel. So during the war, he was with us, and after the war, he stayed in Manastir for a while, and then went to Jerusalem. When the earthquake hit Shkup, his family was in Shkup, but Shelley, his niece, and the doctor were in Manastir. So then after Shelley finished elementary school in Manastir, they went together to Israel. Can you tell us more about the tragedy that Dr. Abravanel suffered during the Shkup earthquake? Yeah, it was a grave tragedy. when the earthquake happened, Shirley was with Dr. Abravanel in Monastery, but his son, Dr. Abravanel's son, went to Shkop to see his sister in Shkop, and when the earthquake happened, they both were killed. They both were killed in their house, and also the son-in-law of Dr. Abravanel was in the house at that time, because they were going to get together and in the house in Shkop and would go to Dubrovnik. And Dr. Abravanel's wife was there too, but it was only the good luck of Shirley that she was taken by Dr. Abravanel to Monastery, and then the rest of the family who was in the house in Shkop, the son, the daughter, the uncle of Dr. Abravanel, and they were all killed when the earthquake hit Shkop. And I said this before, that we went to Shkop to visit them. Did your family's role in saving Jews during the Holocaust shape your life? Not really. Our life was the same before and after the giving, the time during which we gave shelter to the Jews. We had Jews coming from all over, from Belgrade, from Vojvodina, from Macedonia, and the rest of the region that would come through our doors, and whom we helped to go into Albania. I don't know how they got connected with one another, but certainly they were well connected. Every Jew that showed up in the area would come directly to our house and ask for Arslan, for my father. And they'd also ask for the Jews that we had there, Raphael, Solomon. And so they'd, get together and stay together and for a couple of days or 3 days until my father would have arranged safe passage for them into Albania. So if they had ID cards they could use for passage into Albania, fine. If they didn't, then my father would get them ID cards for these Jews, so that they could have safe passage into Albania. So it has been for a long time a dilemma for me whether Moshe Conforti, an old man, the father of Solomon Conforti and Maurice and Israel Conforti, was very, very sick, apparently from prostate, and was hospitalized in Peja, and then he died there. And to this date, I don't know where he was buried. And we're trying to always locate the burial place of Moshe Conforti. Perhaps he was buried in Peja. We don't know, but we never knew where his burial place was. So he was certainly buried somewhere in the Peja area. Could you please tell us about your life after the war, your profession, your marriage, and children? I was married during the war. And in my wedding, all of the Jews that were living in our house in Jalan took part in my wedding celebration. It is very interesting that at that time, especially in the area of Jakova or the Dugajin area, there were not a lot of brides that would wear bridal dresses. So Estera, the wife of Rafael, was a well-known designer for bridal dresses. She said we have to get my wife to have a very important bridal dress when we get married. So she did actually make the bridal dress for my wife. My wedding celebration took part in Jakova, so she could not be there. But when we came back to Dechan with my wife, she met her, and they always had a good relationship. So this is the first time that in their area a bride wore a bridal dress, and that was my wife.
Ju lutem na tregoni për jetën tuaj pas luftës, për profesionin tuaj, martesën edhe fëmijët.
Could you tell us about your life after the war, your profession, your marriage, and your children? Since I was the oldest son of the three brothers, my father and his two brothers, everybody did their best in making sure I had everything I needed. But they also wanted me to get married early, so I was married at the age 17 in 1941 with my wife, Sutje Shlako, from Ferizaj, but they came from Jakova. We lived in Dechan. I worked in Dechan for my father's stores, and I did all I could to help my father's business until I got involved in the war as an active member of the Albanians fighting for liberation. So in 1944 I became a partisan in the 7th Kosovar Brigade. But since I was better educated than the rest of the people of this brigade, and myself and the rest of the people that had finished the madrasa of Shkop were taken from the brigade, were taken out, and were asked to remain inside Kosovo and work inside Kosovo. So I was the commissioner for the command of Dechan, of the partisans. So from there, I was then transferred as an officer with the military mobilization office in Jakova. Then after that, I was transferred again to the so-called Vojni Okrug, or the military district, regional military center for Kosovo. And I was one of the officers for recruitment of youngsters in the Yugoslav army. I worked in the army for 10 years. But later on, I retired from the army, and I wanted to do something on my own, do something else with my private life. So when I left the army, I was also expelled from the Communist Party. I wanted to leave the army because they wanted to put me at the border with Hungary, and then later on at the border with Bulgaria. A high-ranking officer had come from Albania and had asked for me to be his advisor around Kosovo. and I refused. So finally I wanted to retire from the army, and I got retired, and I notified the competent officers that I had left the army, and I was then working in the mines of Hayvalia because I had a good working relationship with the director there. So, once I quit the army, I went to Hayvali and worked at the mines for 4 months. But then I was also asked to leave that job and work for the Physical Education Association of Kosovo, where I worked for 10 years. And then from there, I moved to the Kosovo Chamber of Commerce, where I worked for 10 years. And with the order of Javid Nimani, I was then I got then the Kosovo Chamber of Commerce, and worked together with Betcher Saliu, and then we established what is known today as the Kosovo Chamber of Commerce and the Regional Chamber of Commerce of Kosovo in Pristina, Pejakovo, Mitrovica, and Ferizaj. So for 10 years at the Kosovo Chamber of Commerce, I was the head of the Department of Export and Import of Goods for the entire of Kosovo. So this was a very interesting and a good job I had. And after that, I was asked to move and work for the branch of Jugopetrol in Kosovo. Until then, Kosovo was not very well supplied with fuel. There was only one gas station in Pristina. On behalf of the Kosovo Chamber of Commerce, I had made a proposal for more gas stations to be built around Kosovo. So when Ilija Vakic was prime minister, and Aziza Brashe and Enis Basheva were ministers in the then government, they had called me up and asked me to work for Jugopetrol. Because the leadership of Jugopetrol, based on my proposal, had requested that I take on the duty of bringing Jugopetrol to Kosovo. I have worked for 10 years in Jugopetrol, and I have had a good working relationship with the managerial division there. And from one gas station that we had in Pristina, we have built around Kosovo at least another 15 gas stations during my time with Jugopetrol. And then from Jugopetrol, and then I moved to a new job position, and then I was offered the position of the director of Bororamisi Center, a position that I rejected, but I then got the deputy director position. I was not a member of the Communist League, and I could not take a directorship position. I was expelled from the Communist League because I was not active with the rest of the communists. But still, when I worked for Jugopetrol and for Bororamis, again for 10 years, since the beginning of the center, I was there till the entire building was finished. So that is a wonderful center today. It's one of the best youth centers, and it was a better center than the center of Sarajevo. And this was all thanks to the good architects we had in working and making sure that the Bororame Center would be done in the best way possible. So after I served for 44 years of full-time jobs, I got retired, and thanks to my friends and supporters that helped me then, I could get retirement on time, and I'm always thankful to them. I'm always thankful to the people that worked for Bororame Center, the engineers, the architects, that did a great job then, and the ones that are managing it today successfully. There is always problems with it, but it's better than it's better now than it was during the Serb regime. So when I was there at the Bororame Center, the center was being built with contributions by the citizens of Pristina. 1% of their income went to this building of the center. All of the working people of Kosovo had to contribute 1% for this center. So we had to be very careful and pay particular attention that we build it as nicely as we could, and we came to the point that we needed more money to finalize the project, and thanks to my connections with people, we managed to get the equipment that we wanted, like for the we wanted to have the center become one of the top recreation centers in the entire of Yugoslavia. So we did everything we could, even though there were a lot of problems, but we still managed to complete the project successfully, thanks to our friends, like the director of the bank, Mr. Savagiu, and Mr. Azabrashi, who was a minister for economy, and the banks of Mitrovica and Ferzai. We had some money in the dinar currency, but we didn't have money in the foreign currency to pay for the equipment we wanted to get from Switzerland. But finally, the center was built up, and unfortunately, the center was heavily damaged during the last war, and unfortunately, the center still has many problems even today. But frankly, it is one of the best centers that was built at that time in the whole of Yugoslavia. And that was my last job, and now I live with my sons as a retired person. Could you tell us about your wife and children? Thankfully, my family has been a good family. My children have prospered. When I say this, I want to also give some facts. One of the first wives in Jakova in 1944, my wife was one of the first ladies that took the head covers, the Albanian ladies that took the head covers and never used head covers. So my wife, my mom was old at the time, but still my father made my mom as well take off the head cover. And my father, when he traveled to Thessaloniki and Shkup and other areas, every time he would go there, he would take my mother with him. because every time my mom would go with my father to Shkup, she would take off the head cover. And so every time my father went to Shkup for his business deals, he would take my mom with him. So the time that my father was heavily involved in business, it was a surprise for the rest of the people to see my mom without head cover and my wife. I am very happy with my children also, and I was also happy with the way my parents raised me up. In 1941 I was married. I never knew my wife before I married her. This was the kind of tradition based on which we were married. My wife was from Jakova but lived in Ferizaj. I didn't want to get married at that time. I thought I was too young, but no one asked me. Finally I had to accept because that was a decision of my parents. And I had gone to Peja once in 1941 to get some merchandise for my father's stores, and on my way back, my uncle Ahmet met me at the Bistrica bridge between Peja and Deccan, and got in the same horse carriage with me, and he was talking to me about why I was refusing to get married. He said, we've engaged you and you're getting married. And I said, no. I said, I don't want to get married without my approval. How could you get me engaged without me knowing the person, knowing the fiancée, knowing her family? But the tradition at that time was, if the families knew one another, they would decide on who was to marry who. So when I came back home, I was very upset, and I argued with my mother and father. But anyways, finally, I got married. When I got married, we were still living in Deccan, but the rest of our relatives and family wanted for the wedding to take place in Jakov. So our wedding took place in Jakov. It was not, a great, a big, huge wedding, but it was a decent-sized wedding with all our friends and relatives participating in it. So my wife had finished elementary school, and we had a decent life and a nice life together. And I have had 6 children with her, 3 boys and 3 girls. The first one was a girl, and then a boy, and then a girl, and then a boy, and then a girl, and then a boy. And all of them are very well educated. They all work and have good families as well. So I've had a decent life. I've had a good life. I can't complain about it. During the wedding, we, didn't have something spectacular happening, but it's not anything like the weddings we see today. It was, a wedding with our friends and family, but I got soon sick of the typhus virus. I got infected from my father's and from my uncle. That's the uncle who was arguing against me about my refusal to marry. And I was in the Jakova hospital, and the doctors that were treating me, Dr. Popovich, were saying I got malaria. And then it was not malaria, finally, and Dr. Bravanel, who had come to Jakova to see me, realized that the sickness I was suffering from was typhus and not malaria. So, you know, I told you the story how we met Dr. Bravanel in that military unit, and then how he was brought to see me in Jakova, where I was staying with my uncle's house in Jakova. My father, but my father also had built a house in the same yard with my uncle in the same neighborhood. So Dr. Bravanel figured out when he saw me that it was a typhus virus that I was infected with, and together with a soldier, he got a blood sample out of me, and my uncle was responsible for taking the blood sample to Shkup hospital to get the blood tests run to see whether I had typhus or something else. And, you know, those analyses could not be done in Kosovo, and the tests we could not get the results of the test because that day the hospital in Shkup was bombed, and thankfully at least my uncle survived the bomb. And so he came back from Shkup to Elizhan and walking, and then on a carriage from Elizhan to Ferizaj, and then he got on a bus to finally arrive in Jakova. So ever since then, I have never had any other major disease or any consequences from the typhus virus that I had then. But so far, I've done all right. I've been all right. So this has been my history. My kids, all six of them, have finished university studies. All of them have jobs. My sons, all three of them, have finished college studies. And one of them has studied economics, and all of my nieces and nephews are doing well and obtaining good education. All of my three daughters have also gone through school, and all of them are doing good and have a good socio-economic standing. Can you tell us something about your nephew, Lek, who is doing this interview with you? You know, I can't really make a difference between or among my nephews, but Leka has always had this particular attention to me. He has always been there for me if I needed anything. Every time he's free, he wants me to. He takes me out for visits. You know, to Jilan, Ferizaj, just to take me places. Now I can't drive anymore. I used to have a car, but I can't drive anymore. So I'm very thankful to Leka for doing all the best that he does for me. So Leka is now a student. He's a very good student. Leka graduated from the School of Journalism, and he's now also getting ready to graduate in the field of pharmacy. Pharmacy. Yes. Yes. So it's very good that he has been very well dedicated to the school, and I really appreciate what he has done for himself in school and what he has done for me. And also he works in his father's business, and so he's very active and he's very hardworking, and we are very proud to have him.
Neve na falë që ju
Oh, we see you're
emocione në këtë
become
moment,
emotional.
ndërsa Leka le të vazhdoj bashkë bisedimin me ju.
Could you tell us about the formation, history, and the work of the Kosovo-Israel Friendship Association? Taking into account the work of Dr. Abravanel and his treatment of me and saving my life, and his dedication to saving other people's lives in our community, I always wanted to do something in his honor. And when we had a recent war in Kosovo, when we were deported by the Serbs from our own houses, and I went to Shkup with my family, when we had, to kind of spread around to Shkup, Tetov, and other Albanian towns in Macedonia. It happened that the niece of Dr. Abravanel was on the TV asking for the Reznigi family through the Jewish organization in Shkup. She wanted to know whether we were alive and where we were at that time. So when I saw it on TV, I went to this Jewish organization to see who these people were, and then they showed me the fax that was sent to them, and a manager of this organization, Sarikov, and later one was Viktor Mizraki, one of the managers of the organization. So when I went to talk to them, to tell them who I was, they said, yes, we have a fax from Mrs. Shirley who wants to help you. So we will get foodstuffs and other assistance tomorrow, and so please come and get it. And the second thing is, where do you want to go? Do you want to stay here, or do you want to go some other place in the world? Please let us know. So I called my sons and my daughters and my sons-in-law, and I asked them. I said, do you want to go someplace? We're offered safe passage elsewhere. I had been offered a trip with my sons and daughters-in-law to go in other places of Europe. And so I decided not to go anywhere. We don't want to leave. We want to stay here until the situation settles in Kosovo. And we had left everything behind in Kosovo, so I didn't want to move away from Shkup. So we decided not to go elsewhere. And my oldest son decided to go somewhere else later, but then in the end he still changed his mind and decided not to go anywhere. So as much as we wanted to help the other Albanian refugees in Macedonia, every time the Jewish organization brought assistance and food stuffs and other things for the refugees, they'd call us first, as to ask what we needed. Well, thankfully we didn't need any of this assistance, and we had everything we needed while we were in Shkup. So we stayed in Shkup for some months, and all those coming from abroad, those assistance programs coming from abroad, would come to ask how we're doing. And I would tell them always, I've had about 25 people that I had been in touch with in Skopje and elsewhere, so that everyone that would ask for us would know where we were. So finally, I had decided to establish an Israeli-Kosovo Friendship Association in the name of Dr. Haim Abravanel, because not only had he saved my life, but I also was seeing in Skopje how Jews were still helping out the Albanians who were refugees in Macedonia. So we started this association with all of those who helped Jews during the World War II. And even though we couldn't do any major activities because of lack of financial resources, and second, without having an office or for a place to meet, we couldn't really do a whole lot, and we couldn't actually do what he deserves that we did. But still, we're doing what we can. So I want to say another thing about this. I have had the opportunity to meet Norman Grisham from the U.S., who has come here and recorded our Kosovar families that have helped save Jews. So no, he couldn't record all of them, but he recorded most of the ones we knew about, and we could get in touch with. And based on the pictures he took and the recordings he made, he organized an exhibition in Jerusalem called Bessa, and also organized the same exhibition with the name Bessa in New York, where all these Albanians that say Jews were presented. Well, at least not all, but at least some that we could get in touch with. And again, we had calls from Alichka in Norway that wanted to say whether we were, part of this exhibition. So, like there were Albanian families that we couldn't get in touch with, that we knew they saved Jews. But the thing is that, I want to say this for the first time, that I have the idea that if we can become stronger as an association here, to request from Shirley that we also establish the Israel-Kosovo Friendship Association in Israel, especially now that Kosovo is an independent state, so that together both associations exchange information and activities and help one another to promote this. And I am thankful for the help in this regard to Shirley, Cloyes and DioGuardi, who have also helped in this direction and have helped us with promoting the story of Albania saving the Jews.
Zotri Mustafa, ju jeni kryetar ose president, si temi njësoj, I shoqatës së miqësisë Kosovë-Izrael, shoqatës Dr. Haim Abravaneli.
Mr. Mustafa, you're the chairman of the Kosovo Israel Friendship Association, and you talked to us about what your family and other Albanian families did to save the Jews during the World War II. And finally, we would just want to see photos and pictures that you may have of these people or of those events. Yes, indeed, I do have pictures from back then. And then I have later on pictures that were taken later on with Dr. Haim Abravanel. and we can show them now, and the ones that I have from the time of the war, and the ones that I have later on. I have also letters that were written to us by Dr. Abravanel, and during the last war in Kosovo, Shirley and the rest of his family had written to us. Yes.
Atëherë ju falënderit, besoj se nuk pritoni që t'i kap objektivi jonë.
Thank you so much, and then we would like to record those pictures and documents. Yes, indeed, I would be more than happy to show this picture to you. This is a picture of my grandfather, Mustafe Reznigi. I was named after him. That's my grandmother. And this is members of our family, grandmother and grandfather, their sons, and 4 daughters. So 3 sons and 4 daughters. So now he's the 3 brothers. It's Ibrahim, Ahmed, and Arslan, my father. So that's my father, Arslan Reznigi. He was the youngest brother. He was he helped a lot of Jews, and he worked with Jews with all he could. So he was doing what an Albanian would do normally to help those in need. This is a picture, an old picture of Jakova, of the area where we lived. This is the bridge of Islambegu in Jakova. This is one of the symbols of Jakova. This is the house in Jakova, the house where we lived in Jakova before we went to Dechan. This is a picture of me when I was a student at the Madrasa of Shkup. This is a picture of me and my wife when we got married on our wedding day on the 28th of August 1941 in Jakova. This bridal dress that was made by Estera Nathan. At the time in our area, no one wore bridal dresses when they got married. This was one of the first, actually the first wedding that a bride would wear a bridal dress, and so, my wife wore it when she came to our house in the Channel on the day of our wedding. This is a family picture. That's my father, my mother, me, my wife, and my first daughter, and my sister. My first daughter's name was Hasbiya. This is a family picture. Again, my father, mother, me, and my 2 sisters. This is a family was taken in Pristina. This is another family picture. It's my father with my mother, my wife and I, and our kids, all 6 of them. And thankfully they're all doing good and are doing well. This is me and my wife. This is with the dresses called Alla Turka that came from the Ottoman times, and the dress that my wife is wearing is one of the most expensive dresses of the time. So this is normally what a bride would wear on the wedding day, but since Esther had made a bridal dress for her, then she wore the bridal dress. This is a picture in front of our house in Deçan. The first floor, with the ground floor, was where our store was, and the floor on top of that was where we lived. Our family lived on the second floor, and Dr. Abravanel lived in one of the rooms upstairs with our family in this house. Behind this house, in the yard, we had the warehouse where we would collect all the merchandise, and like the beans and the corn, and also the fruits that we would have in our store, and other products that we would keep. So, this building shown here and the other building we saw before were both burned down during the Kosovo War in 1999 by the Serbs, by the Serb army. So what you see here in these pictures is what they're standing as now. This is a letter, an agreement that shows that when the Jews lived in Deçan for their long-term stay, they had to supposedly be working for someone to get a permission to stay. Like Rafael Natani was one of them, Solomon Conforti, and David Cohen. And so my father would prepare these so-called agreements to enable the Jews to get long-term standing living residential permits in the Deçan area. So this is another agreement that was signed by the rest of the people. Well, this is a letter from Thessaloniki in Greece. This was sent from Thessaloniki in 1931 when my father was doing business with this businessman there, through whom my father was exporting to Greece a lot of corn and a lot of beans. So the beans were actually one of the major merchandise that my father was exporting to Greece. So when the merchandise went to Greece, Thessaloniki, all the packages were about 100 kilos each. But when my father was preparing beans to be transported to the U.S. or elsewhere, the packaging took 50 kilos each, so it was easier for the people to load them up. This is a declaration, a statement that I had given to a journalist, a Jewish journalist from France during the Kosovo War, when we were deported from Kosovo into Macedonia, and we were staying in Shkup. I talked about the Jews that lived in Dichan and how we saved them in Dichan. This is a partial list of the Jews that lived in Dichan in our family. These are the names of the people. The Conforti family,
Levi.
Cohen family, or the Levi family,
Familja Natan,
the Natan family, and the Mizraki family, and the Abravanel family.
Dhe këtu kom përshkru për familjet e
And this
tyne
is where I described their families that lived
dhe këtë deklarat e kom
with
pasur një
our
gazetarës
family
për
and the church. So I've given this statement to journalists from France.
Ja, këtu tani jemi para shtëpisë zotrit Mustafe Reznigjit, në të cilën do të bëjmë një
We're now here in front of the house of Mr. Mustafe Reznigi, with whom we will have an interview. He is a co-chair of the Kosovo-Israel Friendship Association, called Dr. Haim Abravanel, which is the name of this association.
Ja, tani sa po kemi arrit tek shtëpia e tij dhe si duket zotri
Here is Mr. Mustafa Reznigi
lekën ka dalë në
and
pritje.
his nephew Leke
Me qenë se i
Reznigi
kemi paralajmëruar veç.
of
Mirdita,
their
zotri
main
Mustafa.
entrance to the house. Good day, Mr. Mustafa. Welcome.
Jeni mirë?
Welcome.
Vjen mirë. Ne mirë, sigurisht do të jem musafir t'juaj për një kohë dhe ju
We are
falenderoj për
happy
këtë.
that we will be doing this interview with you, and we thank you upfront for it. Mr. Mustafa, thank you so much for your hospitality, for the warmth we felt in your house. We thank you for all the facts that you remembered from your childhood and all the things that your family did for the Jews and for all the things you did. And we also want to thank Lek, your nephew, for helping us with this interview. Thank you so much for taping this interview, and I hope to see you again, and I want to greet the DioGuardis through you. Thank you so much.